this is Tony Barton on Be Courageous, and today, I tell you what, this is going to be good. I have, to my right, Kansas Republican National Committeewoman. I actually said it right, Kim Borchers, and we're so glad that you're here. Thanks for being here with us. And of course, to my left, I have the great Terry Rogers, author, writer, activist, sidekick. No, she's awesome, and I'm glad she's here with us today.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. And so what we're going to talk about today, it's kind of a deep subject, kind of a hard topic in one sense, just because it's also kind of sad, but I want us to do that. But first, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
It's so good to see you guys.
Good to see
It's
you.
been a while since I've seen you.
I know.
You look younger since the last time.
You know, it just kind of happens. I think I kind of have that little, age thing, reversed age thing. Wasn't there a movie, Benjamin Button, something like that?
Something like that, yeah. I think
Only to a limit, though.
Yeah, guys got that. Women did.
I'm sorry.
But we're sure having fun here at the Republican convention.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I'm good.
And so, what's been the highlight so far for you guys?
Seeing old friends who are more like family. We have so much fun at the Kansas GOP convention every year.
That's true. It
That's
is a
my
lot of fun.
highlight.
That
Seeing-
is. It is.
Being with like-minded people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Terry, I would agree. It's that, but also the number of people who've never been to the convention before,
Oh, we're having a
who
good
this is their first time.
Really?
Yes.
And that right there just tells you there's momentum here. I mean,
There is.
people want to do something. They want to get engaged. They're concerned about the future of the country, and they want to do something about it. And this is an off election year in many
Right.
instances. So this is exciting. We're going to put them to work.
We were talking
Amen.
about that last night in regards to the fact that we've got people who are, there's momentum, there's a fire,
That's
there are people
right.
who want to step up and either run for office or get
Yes.
involved in
Yes.
some form or fashion. So
Yes,
I think it's
that's
really
true.
it's something that has to happen.
Sure.
Has to happen.
One of our guests today is going to be a fellow from the Convention of States. And last night, he told me that they've had more volunteers, more interest in their organization than ever before.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All righty, so Kim, what do you have for us today? I mean, you can talk about anything you want. I know you have something specific, but
Yeah. Well, you know what? This is it's front and center on my mind. I just got back from Baltimore, Maryland, for a training session with the Samaritan Women's Institute, and that organization specifically focuses on training rescue houses for individuals that you want to help get out of sex trafficking.
wow.
And I think it's front of mind because I was just there, but you can't turn on the news and see what's happening on the border. And I see a lot of young women and young children, and they are prime targets for sex trafficking. And from a humanitarian perspective, what we are doing is wrong. And there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. That is, you just let the floodgates open in. These folks are dispersing all across the country. And I'll just say this. The cartel, this is their property. And they know where their property is. And I made the comment to someone recently, if you can chip your dog, your pet, so if you lost him, you can find him, how do we know that these human beings are not being chipped by the cartel?
We really don't.
That's something that I never even considered.
And it didn't strike me until I began to see just the mass quantities,
Yes.
but also visiting with women who have been in the trafficking world. And there was a young lady, and let me just say this. This is a God-sized problem. My faith is really a major component to my life. But you have to have God if you're going to help these people, just to get through the trauma of it all. But this young woman, she was from El Salvador, and she had been brought through as a young woman. And so you hear her stories and how she was treated. Well, this is a new money for them. This is, I mean, it's not like drugs. I mean, drugs, you just use it once and you lose it. This is
Right.
property you can use over and over and over again.
And don't they owe the cartel money for a long period of time, and they're having to pay money back as well as being used for their purposes?
Absolutely.
It's really sad. And both, you're right, both young children and women coming across the border are impacted by that lifestyle and
Right.
under the hand of the cartel. It's a sad, sad thing.
Right. And I think the reason, as a Republican, and we talk about immigration, I think folks don't understand that we are a country of immigrants. We value legal immigration.
There, you just said the word though.
It's legal.
Absolutely.
And we value legal immigration because when it's legal, you don't exploit the
That's
immigrant.
right.
Exactly.
But right now, when we have illegal immigration, individuals are getting exploited, and I would just say that's not the American dream.
It's not, and the thing that's really frustrating to me is that our government, from the president on, they're either blind to it, they don't care, or there's another purpose for them doing this, because it's obvious that there is a problem. It's not something where you're looking, oh, there's nothing to see here. Yes, this is a huge and massive problem from that aspect, as well as the fact that, you know, as Americans, we're restricted right now in certain ways. Of course, we're not wearing masks here, and by golly, we're not going to wear a mask. But as a nation, we're under these mandates and restrictions because of this pandemic that's going on, and yet we're getting from the southern border people coming into the country, and it's been said that there are those that are testing positive that are just able to come into the country and go wherever they want. And I don't even understand, you know, the purpose in the sense of us still being under these mandates if we're just going to allow that to happen. And I know that's another aspect of it, but it's just sad all the way around what's happening at the southern border.
Well, they're asking us to suspend reason, right? I mean, you want to tell people in Michigan they can't go anywhere, everything is so bad, but you're going to bring in mass quantities of people who you don't know what their medical records are, you don't know who they are. And if we go back to the trafficking component, let me just say, you don't have to be an immigrant to be trafficked.
True.
That's right.
True.
The number one target for an American citizen is our foster care kids.
You bet.
And these folks know exactly who to target.
Well, when I was in the House, I actually did this symposium on human trafficking and found some of that information out. The young girls that are Americans that are being taken and brought into this lifestyle, you know, and one of the things that stuck out to me is we've got a highway that goes right through. It was one of these things where, does human trafficking happen in Kansas? Well, it does. We've got a highway, I-70, that goes straight through where they're brought from Kansas to, you know, this young lady from Kansas was found in New York. They were actually able to get her, and she was, you know, living in New York under that kind of a situation. So you're right, it's not limited to just those coming across the border. Our own kids are being attacked. So.
Well, and you know, Tony, what's interesting to me, you'll see all stripes fight human trafficking, right? And sex trafficking, Republican, Democrat. But at the same time, they'll go to a rally to stop sex trafficking. But then they're going to come home and watch porn.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because that's really how I got involved in politics. 22 years ago, I was a young mom, left the corporate world to stay at home with my kiddos, and someone had told me that you could watch porn and access it in my public library.
In the library.
In the library.
So you went and checked it out.
So I started asking questions. And mind you, I've been in corporate. I know when I'm getting the runaround.
Sure.
And I had noticed at the time that the executive director did not seem really concerned about it. I said, well, you know, you have to think about the liabilities. And what I learned at that time is the state of Kansas has an affirmative defense clause that will not hold public libraries or public schools accountable for the dissemination of pornographic material.
Why?
You tell me.
And that's to this day.
That is to this day. That law still has not been changed. No. So I find it a complete contradiction of what someone says and hypocrisy when we know that on the other side of that camera is a young girl that you have no idea if she was trafficked. You don't know if she's there by coercion. And then at the same time, you're going to go out publicly saying sex trafficking is terrible. So how do you stop sex trafficking? Get rid of the demand. And that demand starts here in America, right? And that's porn use. And I kind of mentioned this to you earlier, but we have everybody lecturing us. We have this cancel culture going on. But you know, we're not canceling Pornhub.
That's right.
Some of the most racist, misogynist, and abusive industries against women and minority communities. And there's a recent study that was done. I need to get my fingers on this. I'll share it with you. It was my college daughter who was sharing it with me. That you go through and they began to view the vignettes of pornography, the racism that's in it, the abuse, how they treated women, how black men were portrayed, I mean, they're feeding this whole thing, yet we don't hear anybody talking about canceling porn.
Oh, you're right, and I think that we need to look at some of the music, the lyrics of the music, the actions that are taking place in music videos.
Oh,
I think that extends into the porn realm as well.
Yeah.
And none of that gets canceled.
And you're
It
desensitizing.
gets celebrated.
Yes.
It gets
Desensitizing and
celebrated.
celebrating, you're
That's
right.
the thing that is disturbing. It gets celebrated.
Yeah.
And then if you were to mention it, if you were to say something, well, then all those, neat adjectives seem to come out, from being a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe, blah, 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 blah.
Well,
in
do they want to call me a
response.
censor? A censor? Because they're censoring us,
That's
right?
true. I agree. I know. You're right. Absolutely.
So they can't call us censors,
No.
because we're doing that right now. But I think this is something that, if we care about human beings, we have to start talking about this conversation. And, the cancel culture that wants to cancel the All-Star game in Atlanta because someone just can't seem to read a piece of legislation correctly.
Sure.
Actually needs to know what's going on in these industries in which they are feeding and aiding and abetting until they can put their foot down and say, no, if we're serious about sex trafficking, we're gonna take on the porn industry.
So, just after you went down and you went and attended this conference, it was?
It's a training.
A training
We're
program?
looking at bringing a restorative house
That's what I
to
wanted to
Kansas.
ask. What are you going to do with that? So you're looking at doing that here in Kansas?
Yes.
Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, there are a couple that already exist, but the women, the woman who started this program, she actually had a restorative house in Baltimore, Maryland. But because these girls are so broken, you can only take in a few at a time. And what she realized is that we really need more people doing what we do. So they turned into an institute to train other people to do these types of programs throughout the country.
Can you speak to that a little bit, the program itself?
So our goal ultimately is to be able to help young women who want to get out, right? So you have a lot of law enforcement, they'll rescue a young girl, they'll get her to like a safe house at first, and then if she is in some type of drug addiction, you'll need to have, because that's a completely different type of treatment plan. Then once that young woman then needs to come in and we can do counseling with her, we can do education, she may not know how to actually read, and give her life skill sets that are healthy for her so she knows how to survive in a healthy and normal environment. And this, in some instances, can take 2 years plus.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
That would take some time to get, especially from that kind of trauma, to kind of, and I hate to use the word normalize them, but make it so that they have a
Absolutely.
normal path of life that they're on.
Yeah.
Because that's, wow.
Yeah, one of the gals that is starting a home, she's doing drug rehab right now in Fredericksburg, Virginia. She was a heroin addict. She worked in a brothel, and she ended up in Rikers. I mean, so you're going to have a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds. And she said, if not by the grace of God, she wouldn't be where she's at today. And she's just an amazing human being. One of the young women who had been in this particular Samaritan women's house, she was there about 4 years.
So there's no time limit. They won't ask someone to leave after a certain amount of time. They'll stay.
They'll stay. And what we'd like to be able to do, this is our big dream, right? Is that once you're there and you're almost stabilized, then we can put you maybe in some transition housing that then you can kind of live like you normally would. So you've got your job and you're building up a savings account for yourself and you're doing all these things. So then when you leave, you're stable.
Sure.
So it's a lot of work. We're in our infancy, but we don't want to fail these girls. So we want to make sure we do it right.
What's the success rate in regard to them making it through and then coming out on the, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean, are there some stories out there in regards to these girls being able to get through?
Well,
And then, we deal with the girl side of this, but there are boys that are caught up into this
That's a
nonsense
very good point,
as
Tony.
well.
Very good.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's, one of the challenges is there are not as many homes for young boys, rescuing them out. But you mentioned success stories.
Yes.
Human beings are complex creatures, aren't they? So to be able to say, if you go through this program, we've got a 75% success rate.
I know.
That's not something that I think you can give somebody, but what we do know, there is success. So one of the young ladies who I met, she had been in that house, I think, about 3 or 4 years. She now has her bachelor's of science in nursing. She is working in an emergency room. She's focusing specifically on trauma victims because how you deal with a trauma victim is very different than an emergency situation. And that's also guiding law enforcement to know how to deal with these women as well. But I would also say an agenda that I would like to work on is that we have stiffer penalties on the men and not so much on the women. I don't think a lot of these women are doing this because they just love
No one
to do
wants
it
to
and
live
they,
that life.
No.
No
So
one does.
I want to put the hammer down on
Right.
the Johns.
Very good. So for
Fantastic.
people who are hearing this and they want more information or they want to help in some way, where would you direct them?
We have a website, it's called Project to Restore, and just go to that website and you can hear more about what we're wanting to do.
Okay.
Fantastic.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. Thank you. And wow, that's all I got to say. Wow, this is huge. It's a huge undertaking.
Yes.
And you know, the story at the end of the young lady, I'm sure that's going to be multiplied by more. And eventually they'll deal with young men, boys that have gone through the same kind of trauma and get them on a path of success as well. And you're right, it's a hard issue. And when it comes to hard issues, we go to God. God gives us the strength and the grace to be able to make a difference. And so that's really awesome.
Yeah. If we could help one woman
But
transform her life and know how blessed she is and designed by God for great and good things, then we've done what we've been called to do.
That's right.
Amen. Can you give us the website one more time?
Yes, it's Project to Restore, and I can't remember if it's .com or .org. So
That's
check
okay.
one of
We'll
those.
find
So
it.
We'll find it. So
We'll find it
Project
and
to
it'll be
Restore.
scrolling
That's right.
along
And
the
I think it's
bottom.
a Project to Restore.
Yeah,
Does
it's
your
together.
name come up in that?
No, I'm on the advisory board for them, so
Okay.
I'm not the founder. It's a friend of mine who's the
Okay.
founder.
Okay. Very
All
good.
right.
And she is this very amazing woman, and she and her husband have been blessed, and God has laid it on her heart, and she just felt like this was the time.
We wish them all the best.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And thank you for helping to get the word out.
Yes.
bet.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm
Our
so
pleasure.
glad. Thank
Yeah.
you for being here
Yes,
today.
thank you.
Terry, for
Yeah.
being here.
Sure.
I'm going to say it one more time. Kansas, Republican National Committeewoman.
You did it.
Thank you, Kim Borchers. Very good having you
Thank
with
you.
us. This is Tony Barton on Be Courageous with Sidekick Terry here. And that's what we want to say. Until next time, be courageous.